Hey guys, welcome back, and today we have another week of grosses, so let's get into it. So, up first, and Juliet went from 96% to 96%, so it stayed the same, and went from 906k to 851k. As I've stated before, and Juliet is definitely seeing much weaker grosses than it was at the beginning of the year. 851k for and Juliet is not a bad number per se, but when you look at the cost of how much the songs that they, use from different artists cost, and, the production itself, this is a musical that should be making $1 million for most of the summer so that it can take the losses in September and October. Will it close at the end of this year? No, I don't think it's in that dire straits. But I think as a producer of And Juliet, I'm probably getting a little bit nervous because I'm like, we've only been here for like a year and a half, 2 years, I think, doing the business that we should be doing. You'd expect this in the fourth or the fifth year of a show, and for something as popular as and Juliet, it is definitely concerning. And is it showing the signs of an aging show? And Juliet has been around for, I think, 2 years. So again, 2 years is not necessarily when you want to see a show start aging. Hades Town started aging, but at that point it was like 4 years into its, time, or like this past year in 23. So again, it is definitely very concerning, but ultimately it's not, the end of its time. It's not like it's going to close, it's in any danger per se, but there definitely needs to be a close eye paid attention to its box office. And if it falls to 7s and 6s in the fall, then yes, it might close at the end of the year, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think it will come close, but I don't think it's going to happen. Back to the Future went from 83% to 79%, and 1,005,476 to 906k. Again, this is not good numbers for Back to the Future. It should be making $1 million up until Labor Day. This could definitely close by the end of the year, but I think in order for that to happen, I think it would have to go to the 7s and the 6s. I think it can survive barely at 8s and 9s. It's definitely losing money, and 906k is below its weekly operating cost, which I think was like $950 or something, and it's a costly production. So again, I don't think that it is in a good place now, but it's not in a place of, oh my god, like, we are, like, panicking. But this is definitely disappointing, considering the kind of brand musical that it is and how well it did in its first couple of months. Cabaret went from 97.36 to 97.56, and 1,504,203 to 1,520,726. Hades Town sold out, but it went from 809k to 765k. Again, I don't think any show that's in the 7s or 6s is doing quite well, but again, I think Hades Town had a much better year that I think it can take maybe a 7 or a 6 in September and October. But again, I do still hold my stance that Hades Town, if it hadn't done some stunt casting this year, I think it would have closed this year. I think it's a show that has been running out of steam for a long time, but that's been saved by very smart stunt casting from the producers. But you can only stunt cast for so long. Hamilton went from 98% to 93%, surprisingly, of a very low capacity for Hamilton, and 1,957,871 to 1,778,290. Hell's Kitchen went from 99.59 to 98.70, and 1,544,723 to 1,428,094. Moulin Rouge went from 98% to 98%, and 1,216,293 to 1,220,778. And again, I think that once Erin leaves, I think this is going to go back down to what it was, and I think that Moulin Rouge, I think it will be here like a year from now, but I think it's going to be relying heavily on stunt casting, and like I said, stunt casting can only take you so far before you have to face the music, which I think this show and Hades Town will be doing in the next couple of years. But I do think both will be here this time next year, almost guaranteed. 6 went from 861K to 746K, and 93% to 86%, so a pretty steep drop. But 6 is such an inexpensive production to put on that 746K is absolutely fine. Stereophonic went from 100% to 99%, and 947K to 849K. Suffs went from 706K to 713K, and 83% to 84%. So this is definitely better for Suffs. But again, I think that this is not the numbers you want to see, this early on in the summer. And I still think that it will most likely close in January or December. But if Kamala Harris wins, hopefully, the presidency, I could see it maybe having a boost and using some momentum from that to help fuel their show, which I think they should be doing now, but they're not. The Book of Mormon went from 96% to 93%, and 888K to 830K. And again, I don't cover this show, but it is definitely starting to falter a lot recently. Again, it would take many years for Mormon doing very poorly for it to close, so it's not closing anytime soon, but it definitely is showing signs of aging. Gatsby went from 98.95 to 94.88, and 1,253,805 to 1,110,957. I think it's had a fantastic summer, so it definitely can survive hitting a 9 or an 8, and I think this will be here this time next year. I think it would have to take a catastrophic amount of weeks for it to close at the end of the year, and I don't see that happening. The Notebook continues to fail, going from 80% to 74%, and 576K to 544K. At this point, it's only a matter of time until they announce a closing. I think that they might close like a New York, and just close out of nowhere. But if they don't, I think this will close in November. It has to. The Outsiders went from 102.16 to 102.17, and 1,486,923 to 1,452,387. The Wiz ended with almost 2 million, selling out and going from 1,683,439 to 1,945,288. Water for Elephants went from 75.67 to 75.95, and 764K to 751K. So again, a lot of what I said last week is still true to this week. Water for Elephants and The Notebook are in big danger. Again, I think one of these will be closed before the end of the year, and then the other one will close at the end of the year. It's I think, a true 50-50 toss-up. But those are the grosses for this week. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Make sure to like, subscribe, and comment, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.